doing well. He's doing really well. I think my main takeaway from last week was keep working on the down stays and the bed stays, and you encouraged me to do longer durations.
Yes.
So I did do that a couple times just with me and him when I'm like making dinner and stuff like that.
Yep.
So he held them for 20, 30 minutes, no problem.
Cool.
And then parents came over, which is when he's most excitable, with my sister as well. And actually we put him in a downstay for all of dinner.
Oh yeah?
And he held it for the whole half hour.
That's awesome.
So he's doing well there.
Cool.
And then you also encouraged me to start correcting for the jumping.
Yes.
Which I did when my parents came over. Took about 2 corrections, and then after that he's seen them a couple times. Hasn't jumped once since then.
That's great.
So that's going well.
Cool.
And then I think I've been slowly starting to kind of level up distractions too.
Yeah, sure.
He's been doing really well on walks and in my backyard and all that stuff. So recently, the past few days, I've been taking him to Clay Park in West.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar. So it's not like a Lakewood Park where it's like super crowded, but it's still a lot of people there. So we've been working on downstays there, and I'll kind of walk away from him and put him right by some people and walk away. Not too far.
No,
walk away. He never got up, so I think we're.
That sounds like a big stride from last week. So that's good.
Yeah. So he's making some good strides.
Cool. Yeah, and then stuff like this is huge too. Like these are great opportunities when you start noticing your dog's at that like peak level of like aroused to start focusing on keeping them under control. Because I mean that was great. He obviously learned very quickly from it. Yeah. And now he's chill and waiting while we're having a conversation. So that's awesome.
Yep.
So okay, cool. Any big issues in the last week?
He did rush out, so when my parents came one time, I wasn't by the door. They had I knew they were coming, but I didn't think they were gonna be there so soon. And so they had popped the door open, and he kind of rushed out.
Sure.
And so, it's funny because since last week I found out that you did YouTube videos, because actually no one told me that before. So then this past week I've just been binging all of your videos. So I've since answered a lot of my own questions. I feel like so. I didn't have the e-collar on him at that time either, so now I've learned basically anytime someone's coming over, anytime I'm in public, always have it on. Even if I'm trying to correct for something, even when it's me and him, I obviously need to have it on.
Yeah, that or you just don't ask them to do whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's really the key with it is you want to be really strategic about when it's on, we enforce things. When it's not on, you just kind of chalk up your losses and then you wait till the next time to address it. Because you start getting into trying to do too much training without it on and too much with it on, you create this massive contrast of he just knows, right? It's not on here and I can respond this way, and it's on here and I have to respond this way,
And he definitely knows when that thing's on.
Yeah.
I can tell. So that was gonna be the question too, because going forward too, now my plan is to put him in a bed stay for the first 10 minutes anytime anyone comes over. Based on some what your videos.
That's what I still do with my dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess it doesn't necessarily address the problem of rushing out the door, right? We're not addressing that.
Great point, right? So those are two separate things, right? So the bed stay is not to stop the behavioral issue, right? The bed stay is once my dog isn't jumping on people and they're not rushing out the door and all of that kind of stuff, the bed stay is just kind of get them out of the way, let the people come in, not be tripping over your dog, not have it be the hymn show as soon as they walk in and stuff like that, reduce arousal.
And of course, they're and I gotta make sure they know this, because we grew up with a black lab, so they're just as soon as they walk in,
they want to go for him.
So now, and they're all about the training, so just have to remind them to not go for him, right?
Oh, listen, that was an adjustment for my parents too. When I first started putting my dogs in bed stays, they'd be oh, I want to go say hi. I was no, that's a safe spot, right? When he's there, you gotta leave him alone. So it's not to stop him from making mistakes, because frankly, if he was loose in that case, or if my dogs were loose, they wouldn't be jumping on you or anything like that. They'd just be excited, and it would be annoying. But it's not they're doing anything wrong. You know what I mean? So bed stay helps manage them through that. But we have to individually address those actual problems, right? So you talk the jumping, right? We also need to be working on stopping jumping, right? And we also need to be working not rushing out the door, right? But you do those things kind of separately, right? So with my dogs, and listen, getting to realistic expectations things, it's never going to be perfect from the standpoint of if I just walked up to my front door and I just randomly did one of these and went outside and just left that thing open, mine are going to come wandering out.
Sure,
you know what I mean? At some point they're going to come wandering out, right? So, there's still a degree of as I'm going through, I'm like, all right, where's everybody at? All right, I'm opening it. Like, I'm not scared they're going to go, like, bolting into the street or anything like that, but they'll go out.
But I guess, like, so I think it sounds like step one is to work on the bed stay for the first 10 minutes because that's the most important. But, like, if I keep putting him in bed stays, then the opportunity for him to rush out the door if someone else opens it
decreases, right? So it reduces some of the urge to do so. And then again, what I'm getting at is not when people are coming over, right? Then I work on scenarios where, okay, I'm gonna go out and get the trash, or I'm gonna go out and get the mail or something like that. And I treat it like a training exercise. Let's make sure the e-collar's on. I'm gonna open it, and if he does go to like actually bolt through the thing, I'm able to give a correction for it.
Like, I can open up the door if it's just me, and he knows not to go through until I give him the okay, so that's fine. But it's when he's it's when other people
I understand.
excited. So that's like, in my mind, the only opportunity to really train that.
Hello. Yeah, for sure. And again, like if you were to walk to my house, like I do my podcast obviously every Thursday morning, and Josh, the guy I do it with, just walks. I leave the front door open and he just walks in, right? My dogs are typically loose, and like as he's walking in the door, right? That's like probably the one situation I don't enforce a bed stay because it's like whatever,
Okay.
So they walk in and they're like at the door greeting him and stuff, but they're not like flying out the door, right? So you could run some drills like that where every now and then you have the guests come in, and if that impulse is too strong that they're just flying through, you could address it there. But the biggest thing I'm getting at with it is you just want to have realistic expectations with it, right? It's not going to be perfect where you're going to swing that door open while somebody's walking in and they're just going to stay, you know what I mean? And that's a part of the reason why I use the bed stay, is to help in those more like almost unreasonable, distracting situations. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
And then everywhere else, like I said, I'm really strict about that boundary. So that's kind of the game with it.
Cool.
Anything else?
I'm sure I'll think as we go, but like you apply concretely across the board no matter what kind of dog it is, right?
Sure.
But is there like a situation where you're not as concerned with something with certain dogs as you are with other dogs? So I guess my example being like, if someone, whether it's a friend or, let's say I meet someone at the park or whatever, they come up and say, I want to, can I pet your dog?
Sure.
I know based on all the videos I've watched already, I know what the right answer is, right? But I guess I'm wondering if there's any exception to the rule for someone who, like a lab,
right?
I
get what you're saying.
Like super, social and excitable and friendly. I'm not worried about any type of aggression.
No, I get what you're saying.
So like, is that okay in your mind? And then number two, like how do you approach that situation? Because I still don't want him like feeling like he can rush to me.
Good question, right? So I always say like my job is to educate people on what I do. Right?
Sure.
And to give you the pros and cons of scenarios, right? So in an example like on-leash greetings, whether it's with dogs or with people, right? The pros and the cons are, or I should say the cons specifically are, if your dog is nervous or apprehensive, it puts them in a vulnerable position where flight's not an option and they're more likely to react.
Right.
If they really like other people and other dogs, you're creating a conditioned association of when you see other dogs or other people on the walk, get overstimulated.
Right.
The number one issue that clients come to me for is over-arousal issues on the walk. So even if you have the most friendly dog in the world, if you're constantly doing those things, you're creating more arousal and making your job harder. Right? Tack on to that when you get into socialization, for example, and this one's more with dogs than with people. When dogs are socializing, they have this process of like, all right, we're kind of sniffing each other and feeling each other out. Then we're like playing, we're competing, we're roughhousing and stuff like that. And it's impossible for them to do that in that type of social scenario. So it's like you're constantly putting in these dogs in this situation where it's like you're getting them like excited, like they're about to start doing this, and then you're removing them from the situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like it's just constantly teasing them and creating frustration. And then in the case of people,
and I guess I was more like I get the dog,
the sniff, the people, yeah.
I get, but like, all right, so I'm single right now.
Sure.
Right? So if a cute girl comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to pet your dog," like,
listen, man,
I don't want to say no, right? So like, How would you handle it? Because I also don't want...
I understand.
We don't want them jumping on said person. We're taking care of that, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't want them just pulling towards her.
Yeah.
So is there a philosophy?
So you wait. Yeah. So knowing that the downfall to socializing him with a person is creating more over-arousal issues.
Yeah.
Again, I probably still wouldn't do it, but there are plenty of clients I have out there that are like, you know what, if my dog gets a little excited, I can calm him down later and it's not the end of the world. And if I do it once every blue moon like that in a situation, right, it's probably not going to be the end of the world.
Got it.
Right?
It's like you can have your cake and eat it too, right?
Exactly.
Like,
you got to balance it out. And I told this story yesterday in a lesson. My wife used to be loose about that with her dog, right? Where she would go to the coffee shop and this, that, and she was meeting up with one of her friends. As soon as she got to the coffee shop, she would tell Deli, okay, and Deli would go sprinting over to the person and like get some love and this and that. And it was fine. She wasn't aggressive or anything like that with people. But what started happening is because she did it so much with her, she started hitting a point where even though she was super well trained and she would hold position really nicely and stuff, she would get to the coffee shop and when she would see the person, before my wife even told her it was okay to go over, she would like rip her, like charge to the end of the leash to try to get to that person, right? So she created a problem because she did it too much. Right? So we nixed it for a little bit. We eliminated it altogether. And listen, if my wife goes out with the dogs every now and then, I'm sure if she goes and meets up with a friend, she's still letting it happen from time to time. But she saw how it created the problem, and then she was able to address that and reduce the amount of time she was doing it so it didn't become a further issue. Right? Sure. So the cool thing is like once you understand a lot of these concepts and you understand, okay, if I start noticing this problem, this is why it's happening, you could kind of like
tighten it back up.
You could kind of like season it how you want to, you know what I mean? And like, focus on things like you were asking originally, focus on things the way you want to focus on them. And if you start noticing issues, understand how to go in and tighten it up like you were saying.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And that's the cool thing about dog training is like I teach people to live the way that I live with my dogs and the things that I do with them. But in the end of the day, it's up to you to take what you're going to take and implement it how you need to.
Right. Yeah, and if to me it's not a problem, like you said, if to me it's not a problem that he gets a little excited, when I let someone pet him, knowing that maybe the next time then he's going to maybe pull a little bit towards the next person a little harder because he thinks that every person he sees is going to, he's able to go up to. That's, that's kind of the cost.
It's a give and take. Yeah.
Exactly. Can you give me like a little bit more of like a detailed like homework plan? Like what, like if you were like me, like 2 or 3 times a day, this is what I want you to do. Because it sounds like what you're telling me is like bed stays and down stays, which is like, all right. So he's got. I feel like he's got that, and then maybe like how to level up the distractions, like where recommendations, places to take.
So basically, when you're at this stage in the training, where you're kind of just over halfway through, right? And your dog kind of knows everything, you're in proofing stages with things at this point, right? We got a couple more little things we need to teach as far as shaping up this common command a little bit better and stuff like that. But the drills we've worked so far, so your leash walking, your down stays, and your bed stays, your job is now to incrementally figure out, 1, where am I gonna need to work on these things, right? And 2, how can I make these more challenging than I'm currently making them, right? So if the bed stays right now, you've checked the box that duration is looking good, you're getting them to hold 30-minute bed stays, well then see if you can do an hour, right? Or he's holding the bed stay for 30 minutes around moderate distractions, see if he could hold the bed stay for 30 minutes while you go in and out of other rooms and go out of sight, and maybe if cleaning or running the vacuum or something is a distraction for him, you could test it with those things. Your downstays, right? At this point, it seems like when you're working with him, he's really good. It probably could use a little more practice where you're parking yourself on like a bench somewhere or something and just letting things go by, So maybe go to Edgewater, find a picnic table near the path and do your 20 or 30-minute downstay there while you're having lunch and there's all sorts of shit going on around you. You know what I mean? So it's not so much a formal sit-down training session because once you hit this point, you're not doing as much of that. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm chunking out 15 minutes twice a day or something like that. It's like where in the real world can I implement this stuff then at this point? You know what I mean? So that's up to like what you're gonna need out of him, right? And how far you could push it as far as those types of things, Which is why I always like to start things with like, okay, in the last week, like when you come back in, right? It's gonna be like, okay, cool. In the last week, what scenarios was he in that he didn't do like perfect in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I look at those things, it's like, okay, cool. Well, my next couple training sessions I do are gonna be trying to chase that same exact scenario to work through that distraction better.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And looking at things that way.
Okay.
So.
Makes sense.
I would work on those types of things. So it's not a detailed plan necessarily, but it's more of a strategic way of looking at how do I make these things more challenging for him so he can keep growing from it.
Yeah, I mean, other than going to like Edgewater Park, like what about taking him into Home Depot or, you know,
yeah.
He's like, so my, you know, person who cuts my hair keeps telling me to bring him in, and I've been saying no because I didn't think
sure.
but I feel like now maybe he can go in there and hold it down, stay while I get my hair cut or things like that. Like, I don't know.
Dude, and also like, you know, depending on what kind of relationship you have with your barber, it's like could be something where instead of going there for your haircut where you're gonna be a little preoccupied, go there to like just take him. You know what I mean? Right? Like just take him up there like, hey man, like this is my dog, you know, and like, you know, wait in the lobby for a couple minutes and make him do it down or something, and then let him hang out, you know, and let your barber say hi to him and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
And then the next time you take him there, then it's like, okay, cool, we're actually gonna go and like get my hair cut and he's gonna hold this down next to me the whole time, or things like that, right?
Okay. So yeah, it doesn't sound like there's any, you know, there's nothing really off limits at this point.
No.
Proofing this stuff.
Yeah, because here's the thing, we want to start putting him in any situation you're going to ultimately want to put him in to see how he does.
Yeah.
And then until you start doing those things, you're not going to have references of, okay, this is what I need to work on still.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we do have something new now because it's kind of getting boring too, right? It's like doing the same things every day. But now I just have a column, if I get a long lead, I can start working on that.
Yeah.
Too, so.
100%, man.
Cool.
You know? So all those types of things. And then at that point, again, I just say it's what you like to do with your dog. You know what I mean? Like you know, we're homebodies, right? We stay at home, so I need my dogs to behave in the house.
Yeah.
I don't need them to do a ton of commands. I need them to know the rules.
Yeah.
But I like going for hikes with them, like off-leash hikes and stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, going to a trail where there's not a ton of people around, using your long line, giving them some freedom to go sniff around, and then periodically practicing a recall. You know what I mean? Like that's something that I did a lot of with my dogs to get them prepared for that.
Okay.
So you just got to ask yourself that, like, what is it I want to be able to do with him still?
Yeah, that's definitely something on the list. Okay. And then, again, I've watched so many of your videos now that I kind of know the answer, but just to hear it firsthand again too, like all of my like really good friends have a dog, at least one, and he's met like, you know, most of the time it's just one-on-one, which I know is what you recommend, so that's fine. Like, and they're good dogs, but you know, there's like, I guess like I'm curious too, like there's like one that like I can't tell if it's a good like situation or not. He's like, and I guess you haven't seen him socialize with any dogs yet, but he's just like grabbing necks, like he's on.
Just being a lab.
He's
Yeah.
He's on you. And so I guess just like maybe it'd be helpful to like better understand like when he's being like, I don't know if he's too much. It seems like he's too much in a lot of cases.
Sure.
Like what are like any like little hints or like?
I try to see how the other dog is responding to it, right? So if it seems like the other dog is constantly trying to get away from him and stuff like that, I'd step in and set a boundary and tell him to chill out, you know?
And so in terms of like how to correct that, is it just separate and they're done and there's no correcting, or is it like, can we kind of try to correct? Let them keep playing.
Yes, that's what you want to do. You don't want to remove them from the situation because that creates more drive to get back to it. Okay. But if you create an actual correction there, what it does is it creates this kind of cap off of like, you could take it to a level 9, but then you got to start checking in with me. You know what I mean?
So it's not like a specific action, because like, I don't want to confuse him when I'm correcting him. So am I looking for specific actions that he's doing, like grabbing the neck, or is it just like this perceived energy level of me that I'm just like, all right, too much, a correction?
It's more that. It's individual based on what you're comfortable with, because we got plenty of dogs that you watch them play and to the average eye would look like these dogs are killing each other, right? But they're having the time of their life, right? So every dog's got a different play style, and every dog also has things that they like and don't like in play, right? So it kind of depends on the group that I have my dog with.
Yeah, okay.
So.
And then just make sure
more than anything, what we're doing is we want to teach him to respect the other dog's cues, right? So that's why I said it's not even what he's doing or what the other dog's doing. It's if I notice the other dog is clearly trying to give cues that he's not into it and he's not picking up on those, that's where I'm not correcting him for his behaviors. I'm correcting him for not respecting those cues.